plenty of times when my own shyness and tenuous self-belief has turned up like the proverbial bad smell, like the naughty people in your ear telling you why you shouldn't do something. And those thoughts sort of almost stopped me from taking the plunge and doing this podcast. But and I certainly needed more than a push to do it. I'm
Yeah.
managing it far better than I used to, but there are still sort of some situations that I get into that I'd rather not have got into. Now, like a few weeks ago, I had a complete sort of chance encounter where I got over myself and ended up having the really the best conversation with a musician and artist whose work I'd admired for a long time, and it drives me nuts sometimes. Sometimes the thoughts that I have. Anyway, my guest today has lived with shyness, imposter syndrome, all the while having the most prodigious talent for songwriting, and their songs are daring and unpredictable, forceful yet tender, confident and coy. And it's really, for me, it's this sort of enchanting kaleidoscope that makes them so compelling. And really, thank fuck for those chance encounters and bravery. You might know that they had a very special encounter themselves with Patti Smith that's helped bring their band Llobet, to the disciples. So it's my honor, real honor, to welcome Nick Llobet to the show. Nick, thanks so much for coming on. It's really great to see you.
Oh, it's an honor. Thank you for having me on the show. It's really sweet.
Awesome. So the your latest LP, Way to Be, has been out for a sort of couple of weeks now. I guess. I mean, what's how are you feeling? How are you feeling? Beforehand, and how do you feel now about it all?
Well, this album was a 5 year in the making record because of the pandemic and
Mm,
whatnot, and just kind of I'd sat on these songs for some time before recording them, and then I finally recorded them, and then we shopped it
mm,
around to some different labels to see if anyone would put it out. And to my surprise, one of a label I knew pretty well, Hardly Art, wanted to put it out, and so I was just
mm,
like really honored and excited, and that process took a while. So it was a very long process from writing the songs to recording them to putting them out on a proper label and whatnot. And so doing all of that, it was just kind of just one adventure to the next, just like
mm.
all these different, emotions and feelings and in each little section, each chapter of all that. And then now that it's released, it's like I've entered into this new, completely new um, territory of like, you know, it's time to move past this 5 years of working on this record. I've been working on it for so long that now it feels pretty interesting to like be able to start writing new songs and start planning for a new a makeover, so to speak. Even though I do play these songs,
Mm.
obviously, and we'll be playing them for the foreseeable future in shows and whatnot. But it's like they're getting a makeover regardless because it's just been so long, and now the band has changed. We're a trio now, so there's a big transformation happening, and I feel that this is I'm on the cusp of like the next iteration of this project, and it's
Mm.
exciting. It's been a long time coming, having sat on this record for 5 years, and now that it's out, it's just another another adventure awaits.
What was the? It's an interesting one. This, look, thinking about something that you've written, so say so long ago. I mean, kind of, 5 years ago, let's say, and then going through something which, I mean, just taking, kind of like my own sort of feelings about, 2020, 21, even into 22. It's such a profound sort of change for and deep change for a lot of people. I mean, how in terms of what you'd written then, given your experience of those sort of 5 years, I mean, how did it feel? Did it still feel right? What you'd written. I guess it's a period in time. It's a moment in time, isn't it? When you're writing that.
Yeah, like you're asking like how it felt like reflecting on them
Mm,
after. That's a good question because as somebody who's very critical of their work and always trying to grow and always able to kind of hindsight look and do better and whatever that means, just always trying to grow and problem solve. I I definitely it gave this album a cool edge to it because what happened was I sat on the songs for like a year before I started recording them. So I've written them all, and then I sat on them. And while I was sitting on them, I was editing them. You know, I was giving them different lyrics here and there. You know, changing the bridge, swapping the bridge out for a different bridge, or the chorus. The
Mm.
chorus wasn't working, so I made it more high energy or whatever. So I was editing the songs for a year as opposed to writing, just kind of like little by little, you know. And so doing that was like kind of a cool way to keep them relevant to me. And you know, I used the word makeover before, but I'm going to use it again. I gave all the songs a makeover, and then it all goes into this whole feeling of transformation. Everything about art and what I do is this like one ongoing transformation, and everything is just always subject to change. And so the album kind of took on that personality a little bit of just like
Mm.
leveling up in the song craft aspect because I had some time to look back. Before that, I would just release songs as I finished them, even if they were like unfinished. You know, if they were too short or they didn't have like the right parts, I would just go with what I had initially, and that's a cool vibe. You know, it's a cool,
Mm.
very. It's got like a cool feeling to it. But this album was a little bit more methodical and a little bit more. I got a little more deeper into the editing process, trying to really refine the songs to be as best as I could make them with the hindsight that I had, given that I sat on them for some time.
Which sort of it so those different approaches. So write releasing stuff as as it is, almost like almost unfinished versus being more, as you say, more methodical and sort of, I guess, precise. I mean, which kind of method comes more naturally to you?
Well, the natural thing would be just to let it go as is and
Mm.
not work on it too heavily after the fact. But as I've done this process for a while, I find that it's yeah, I had the unique privilege, or I don't know if it's a privilege, but I had the unique circumstances of the lockdown and society coming to a halt for at least a straight year, even
Yeah.
more, So when that happened, I I couldn't write songs. I was just my mind was so out of I was so in shock with what was going on that I like wasn't able to write songs, but I was able to just like kind of do something that was a little simpler than that, and that was refining the song. So it's natural for me to just like finish things and put them out. I don't like sitting on stuff for too long, but that process showed me another angle and taught me a little bit about patience and a little bit about it's okay to sit on something and develop it further. It doesn't have to be like cranking them out all the time, but there's beauty to both situations. I definitely value finishing something quickly, and I also value having the time to develop something further. Sometimes I will like a song if I could have sat on it longer, and sometimes I will make the song worse if I sit on it longer, because then I'll be like in a whole different. It's really just a matter of what works for the song, and
Mm.
a lot of times I just keep things as they were originally, but sometimes enhancing them or further refining them is the answer as well. So there's really no right or wrong way for me to do things. I'm learning, and that's the fun part, is that every song is a unique process, and will surprise you at the end, no matter what. In the end, just like
Mm.
how you arrive to a finished song will always be a surprise to me. Um,
Mm. It's funny. I did about it's about 2 years ago now, or just over, maybe just over a year ago. I did a like a. I'd never done any graphic design myself, and I did a graphic design course, just a sort of short one. And actually, it was when the last Pixies album came out, and I saw the artwork, and it's the same guy that's done it for years. But I saw it, and I was like, wow, that's just really kind of striking with the red and the black,
mhm.
and just very kind of like sort of angular, and it just sort of hit me, and I thought, do you know what? I really wish I could do that. So I took this course, and anyway, I've started, for both this podcast and for some writing that I'm doing my own kind of design work, and I sort of fell in love with this designer, David Carson, who's around in the '90s doing Raygun magazine. and it's great. It's great for me because he kind of broke the rules, so it means that I could just basically do stuff, and it if it's not, with what the norms are or the rules say, it doesn't really matter. But it's funny, like, what you were saying. I was just thinking that, sometimes I noodle around with stuff, put little extra bits in, and then just like, "Oh, why are you doing that? Just take it out. It doesn't need that." But other times it will do, and I've learned myself that there's no, like you said, there's no real right or wrong approach. It's just what comes in the moment to you, what
Yeah,
sort of fits the aesthetic almost.
totally, totally.
It's
Very
really it's really interesting. So I know like in the intro I mentioned about Patti Smith, and I know you probably sort of recounted this story a few times, but I'm interested in the what stood out to me, with that conversation you had, was the importance of people in almost in that kind of support network, whether it's people who are long-standing friends or just those kind of encounters that really just hit a spot and give you that sort of confidence boost
yeah,
almost.
totally. Yeah, meeting. I wasn't like I had really just only been familiar with the album Horses, which is I guess like
Mm,
the cliche album to be familiar with, but I it's an amazing album, obviously, and it really changed my perspective. I originally heard Patti Smith's music in a skateboarding video when I was 14 years old.
mm,
Uh, the song "Free Money" was on in this video, and I never was raised listening to songwriters like Patti Smith. So as far as my parents went, so hearing that song in the skate video, being 14 years old and being like,
mm,
I didn't even play music yet, and I just remember being so like blown away by the way she articulated her singing, and just like it just was like a totally sleazy like style that I'd never heard before. I don't know how to explain it. Sleazy is maybe not the right word, but it was just like this really like gnarly
yeah.
poetry. It was just like this poetic. Like I was 14 and had no interest in songwriting at all. Like I just liked music. I didn't even think of lyrics or anything. But that I just never forget the way it drew me in as a kid who had no interest in that stuff, in that craft particularly. And then so I liked the song so much and the way it was paired with this skate video, whatever. And so in my mind, I always knew I liked this one Patti Smith song. And then so eventually I bought Horses, and then devoured that album, listened to it back to front, back to front. And so I'm not the kind of person that obsesses over artists and like celebrities and like goes crazy with their catalog and goes. I'm just not. I have like ADD when it comes to that. Like I just love taking in small chunks things that inspire me, and I'll run with that small thing forever. It's like that's more my
Mm,
style, the way my brain and my neurodivergence operates around influences and whatnot. But yeah, I got really obsessed with that album, and I always knew who she was. She's such a famous person. I know what she looks like. So I was in Penn
mm,
Station. I run into her, and I'm not the kind of person to go up to anybody.
yeah.
And even friends, I'm very shy, and if it's even if it's like someone that I haven't seen in a while, I might avoid saying hello. I'm just like so
Yeah, I know. I hear you. Yeah.
yeah, and so I saw her at Penn Station, and I was in a time of my life where I was just desperate for any kind of acknowledgement or any kind of I don't know. I mean, I didn't like try to talk to her to get acknowledged. I just wanted to leave that situation knowing that I had said hello to somebody that I had looked up to. I guess it was just a very simple, pure thing.
Mm,
I wasn't trying to have a conversation with her really. I was just trying to say hello and just say nice to meet you. And it ended up becoming a conversation thanks to her. I was too shy to talk. I couldn't even open my mouth other than hello. I just wanted to say hello. And so she just engaged me so heavily and just started talking to me and asking me all these questions. And she saw me I had a guitar with me, and so she was asking me all these questions about my, if I was in a band, what kind of music I played, all this stuff. So just having had this like figure of like this nurturing figure almost, someone that had known the craft, someone who had
mm,
made many records, someone who had been part of such a bustling punk rock scene. I don't know. I was just
mm,
so enamored by that experience, and she treated me so kindly, and she almost saw right through my soul or something. I don't know. It just felt like she really got me, and I just felt really really nice. You know, she just like was so sweet. And then she said, "Practice hard, Nick." She remembered my name and everything. And then we hugged, and that was it. I mean, you know, and so what had happened is I had left feeling like, you know, this was before I played shows, as you bet, or you know, before I
Hmm.
really put myself out there. I was just very shy and kind of developing. So I was a developing songwriter, kind of hiding in my room, and had not many friends. You know, so it was just like a really beautiful moment for me. I got like really it just like kind of invigorated me to like just practice hard or whatever. You know, I just thought like this. I tell everyone this, and I've said this in interviews, but I feel like she blessed me in some way.
Mm.
Um, and you know, of course, you know, it's just simple as that. You know, I got into one of her albums really heavily, just felt like saying hello, and it turned into like a really nice conversation. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was cool. I needed that at that time of my life. I needed to be validated in some way by somebody that I looked up to, because I wasn't really getting any of that, and it, you know, I just was very shy, and I don't know what got into me, but it was one of those moments where if I didn't say something, I would have been mad at myself for not just like, you know, we were in Penn Station. It was super casual. There was no one around. It was just like the perfect
Yeah.
moment. We were waiting for our trains, you know, so regardless, I would have been sitting there next to her anyway. So it was just cool. It was a cool experience. And I definitely think that she was genuinely really, really supportive and nice to me. And I was a complete stranger asking to meet her, you know, so I thought that was a special moment for sure.
I think it's fabulous. I really do, and I I I totally hear you with the um you know, kind of sometimes you sort of see people that you know, and it's like I don't know. It's just the environment. It's just like sort of what you're feeling. You know, you feel a bit of a dork sort of going up to them and sort of introduce yourself or whatever, you know, it
Yeah,
can
yeah.
be. It's just it for introverts and shy people, like society is just sort of fraught with, you know, these sort of situations where you know you for no real reason, and you know that it's your brain telling you, you know, it's trying to be sort of protective to avoid, you know, any sort of you know, situations where you may get hurt or whatever, you know, and especially on, you know, with people that you don't know as well. um but you know, the reality is most times you know, even that in I find in, you know, such a, you know, divisive world, that this is perhaps what we sort of lost, is the ability to, you know, sort of connect as sort of humans, because when you do, the for the most part, not always, but for the most part, you can establish some sort of rapport, you know, and get somewhere with people.
Yeah.
You know, it's not and I think, yeah, sometimes it's just our brain that's kind of playing tricks with us, but brains are hard to kind of override, aren't they?
Tell me about it.
Yeah. So I mean, going back to, you know, when, you know, when you were younger, thinking about your formative influences, you know, things that you remember as, um you know, things that I guess that have sort of formed who you are now, your identity now, and, you know, who you've become, and
Yeah.
what's kind of influencing you now.
Um, what's influencing me now, or when
Or
I was?
or is it, I guess, like, if we start, you know, what, you know, with when you were a kid,
Yeah.
you know, things that you really remember.
Well, there's a bunch of stuff. Both of my parents were very musical in the sense that they listened to music constantly. They weren't performers or musicians at all, but
Mm,
they were, you know, my mom would sing around the house, obviously, like, you know, just singing and just kind of doing a lot of dancing and just listening to tons of music. My dad was a huge rock and roll enthusiast, you
mm,
know, was showing me all kinds of rock music since I was in diapers. Like, there's home videos of him playing Metallica, and me and my siblings
mm,
are all babies, you know, we're all just running around. And so my dad's like into like heavier stuff like that. And like, yeah, and you know, so I kind of gravitated towards his influence heavily when I was young, when I was like a young teenager. But you know, as far as back as I remember, I there's a lot of things like video game music was big for me when I was a kid. Although I
mm,
wasn't like, I wouldn't have said my favorite music is video game music as a kid, but the amount of influence that the amount of times I'm writing songs to this day, and the Sonic the Hedgehog song will
Yeah.
pop into my mind, and I'll start writing that by accident. Like that's all from my very young age. And so video games were a huge part of my life as a kid, very young, and I think that was a huge gateway for my my brain and my fantasy and music combining. And obviously I watched a lot of movies as a kid, and some of those Disney soundtracks are huge. I saw the movie Hook is a movie I watch all throughout the years. It's a movie about like Peter Pan, but it's like directed by
Mm.
Steven Spielberg. And I guess critically it was like a flop at the time, but as a kid I watched it obsessively, and as an adult I try to watch it once a year. It's just great. It's got Robin Williams. This is just such a good
Mm.
movie.
I remember it. Yeah. Yeah.
Soundtrack is John Williams,
Mm.
um, and it's just like that soundtrack. When I hear it today, it brings me back to being a kid. I think that was like a big influence on me. It's just an uplifting, like really powerful soundtrack for someone that wants to fly. I guess the whole movie's about Peter Pan, but I just like kind of taught me a lot about myself as a child and the things I was inspired by. And so, stuff like that. And then, my dad got us into rock and roll. I was into skateboarding growing up. So I watched a
Mm.
lot of skate videos on VHS, and those videos influenced me greatly because it was now all of a sudden all this music I'd never heard, like new wave, punk rock, all these styles of music my parents never really got into. So I kind of got into the punk rock scene in middle school, and got into bands like No Effects, and
Mm.
bands like Rancid, and just like that kind of stuff, like middle school era rock
Yeah.
music and whatnot. I liked all Good Charlotte. I loved that Good Charlotte. All these bands, and then I got older, and I was really into classic rock. I wanted to impress my dad, and just like kind of wanted to get really good at guitar in that regard. And then I wanted to write songs when I got into my like early 20s, and then I started listening to more songwriters like Jeff Buckley and like Patti Smith, and just like got really into Leonard Cohen's poetry at one point, which really developed like my vision for like writing lyrics, and like balancing like this morbidity with like beauty. Like I feel like Leonard and humor, Leonard Cohen's style of lyric writing is very much like that, and I feel like that's kind of what I kind of try to do is like just flash snapshots of
Mm.
different extremes of life. But yeah, like I have so many influences. I would literally be here all day talking about it, but
Mm.
I got like really into like classical music at one point, but it was all through Isao Tomita, who's this Japanese like composer and synthesizer artist, and in the '70s he made a few albums that were like covers of like classical pieces, but renditions done with Moog synthesizers,
Mm.
like huge productions of like orchestras, but done with all like analog synths. And so I got really into those records and his interpretations, and that led me into getting into Debussy and Chopin and Stravinsky, and so all of
Mm.
these influences were really big. Obviously Koji Kondo, the Nintendo composer. The Ocarina of Time soundtrack was huge for me growing up, and to this day I look at it like I like the Beatles. Elliott Smith. Got really into country music and Neil Young. I mean, I could go
Mm.
on. There's this like album I got called Troubled Waters, and it's a compilation of hill country blues. It's this blues from the northern Mississippi area called the Hill Country, and it's just all these. It's a compilation of these artists from that region in the '60s, and just like a lot of those rhythms and guitar parts, I was just enamored by. I wanted to learn them, and
Mm.
Jimi Hendrix was a big influence on me growing up. I was a guitar player, just wanting to like have this like, freedom of flowing through the guitar like it's part of your body, and
Mm.
just wild, colorful songs, weird chord progressions, just like just all kinds of stuff. I mean, I'm just always listening to different kinds of music, different styles. Like lately, I've just been kind of listening to like Death Grips. I'll
Oh
listen to
yeah.
like
Yeah.
Death
Yeah.
Grips, I'll listen to the Debussy. I'll just kind of go between the far extremes of stuff, and just like um, yeah, I really like this band Boris, the trio
Mm.
band. Auto Lux I've been getting into lately. I'm listening to a lot more like heavier like trio bands to kind of
Mm.
influence, because I'm in a trio. We're in a trio now, so I'm just trying to kind of like get in that mindset. But like yeah, like my friend Steve Hartlett is someone who I came up with, like, well, someone that I've been inspired with as I've like come into the scene or whatnot, and just like he's in these bands called like Ovlov and Stove, and both of those bands were like huge for me, and like playing shows and like getting out
Mm.
there, seeing them play like really inspired me. And Steve's a great friend of mine, and I just am really inspired by songwriting. Anyways, yeah, I could go on. I can go on forever about influences. It never ends for me because I'm always influenced by something.
What about you know, again and again as you were growing up, you know, what sort of um you know, kind of scenes or kind of kids were you sort of hanging out? What sort of kids were you sort of naturally drawn to as sort of friends and people that you would sort of hang out with?
I notoriously hanging out with like the outcasts, as myself, I felt like I was, I always wanted to be like accepted and cool and all that, but it never happened. I just never was that person. I was always, at a young age, I recognized quickly the popular kids and I was, I very much was not one of those kids. And I, the popular kids isn't like the good looking jock type, people. And like, I was just more with like I don't know, just like the skaters and the kids who like didn't give a fuck about that, and the kids who were like, starting to poke their heads out politically in some little way, and just yeah, I started hanging out with like the counterculture kind of kids, and we listened to punk rock music, we talked about skating, you know, we yeah, it was just all about that and not about like, climbing the ladder of popularity and all of that stuff or athleticism. Was skateboarding, I guess, is athletic, but in a different way. It's just much more artistic. Not that I don't want to down talk athletes. I'm sure
No,
that
I
you
understand
know what I
totally.
mean. You know what it go
Yeah, yeah,
how athleticism goes with popularity and the jocks and all that. I was like, I just was never.
absolutely.
I was never part of that, and I wanted to be at first. Because like my parents kind of, I feel like were more like athletic people and more like I just was always somebody who was shy and was picked on very brutally, and yeah, I gravitated towards those people, and
Mm.
still those people are still my friends, to be honest.
It's funny, isn't
I
it, that you get you know those sort of experiences and the you know the people that you gravitate towards and their own you know experiences as you know perhaps as outcasts themselves. There's a strength in that, isn't there? There's a lasting strength in that. You know when you kind of like establish the bond. I remember having a I had a chat with Alice Nutter, who was in the band Chumbawamba. You remember Chumbawamba?
yes, yes, my dad showed us that.
Oh,
Um,
I first got into them when you know when their first album came out, and I was immediately sort of drawn to that. And anyways, I was having a chat with her, and she's a TV screenwriter now, and she's brilliant. She's still you know very much a you know kind of socialist. She's got a really great outlook, great you know ethics. I mean, she was talking about you know when she first got with together with Chumbawamba, there was maybe I think at the time when they started around about 83, there's about 10 or 15 of them, not all of them in the band at the same time, but as a sort of collective. And they lived in a squat. They held these sort of anarchist beliefs. And she said, you know, we dressed the same, you know, we we ate together, we nobody had money. All the money that we ate, we earned just sort of went into the pot.
right.
And she said that there was just this strength in that as bit of being part of a gang, part of a sort of tribe, and there was a real strength in that that you know was very kind of empowering when you're facing you know this you know I guess sort of dislike from lots of parts of society you know that look on them you know very unfavorably and there was a collective strength in that you know that's lasted you know for her for years still friends with you know with the band now.
I love that. That's so wholesome. I mean, yeah, that's that's what life's all about.
It is for sure. It really, yeah, and again, I sort of find that when there's, you know, when the world is so difficult that when you find like-minded people that, uh, you know, there's a real sort of power in that.
For sure.
You know, and that's kind of what does give you the kind of the hope and the strength sometimes.
For sure. Yeah. I feel like nobody is strong on their own. We need, well, of course people could be strong on their own, but we're strongest when we can come together. Um,
Mm,
and join something bigger than ourselves. And I think that that mentality changed the way that I wrote songs because I was very isolated my whole life, kind of over sheltered, and I wasn't really part of a music scene. I went to a lot of shows over the years, but I was just very kind of, I didn't really find my like-minded people for until I'm a little bit of a late bloomer in that way. And I think when I really learned to find something bigger than myself and join something bigger than myself and just listen and be open and try to, I think that's when things for me turned out the best. And now I have like a thriving community of people that I'm a part of, and I in the music scene or whatever, just artists or friends, politically like-minded people. And
Mm,
yeah, like I definitely agree. I think that's an extremely valuable thing about humanity is finding those communities of like-mindedness and building something bigger than your individual self.
mm.
That's like to me is that's what it's all about,
There's also, I think, a thing with sort of courage to do things, to perhaps take risks in, whether it's in your life in general or your creativity. When you have people around you that can, whenever you have self-doubt, doubt about what you're doing, just to say, yeah, Nick, this is good, you should do it.
hmm
That's I find that is quite important for me,
for sure.
in what I'm doing. Um, yeah, I mean, do you feel that with I mean, like, take risk taking, for example, in your music, do you feel that that is part of what you do in your music, take risks, with what you're creating?
For sure. Yeah. And the risks that I take, I don't know how much of a risk it really is in the grand scheme of life, but creatively, I thrive on taking risks. And for me, I guess like what risks is just like being provocative with words or lyrics, or sorry, or chord progressions, or
Mm,
melodically. I'm a little bit of a music nerd. I love to get a little deep into like kind of where, I like to walk in areas that I haven't walked before. Every song I try to kind of cover something I haven't done. For me, this project is purely a thing. It's all about playing. It's like a very very childlike thing. It's all about imagination and seeing like every crevice of my playfulness. How can I explore that
mm,
um, through different filters of emotions? It's like I love to kind of play with darkness in the music, but like kind of balance it with something else, and just I don't know. I love to play around. I grew up watching a lot of scary movies when I was really young, and I feel like I have this like morbid interest that I developed from a young age. My father showed me the movie Alien and Aliens, those two movies when I was like 5 or 6, and most parents would be like,
wow.
"Well, how could you show your kid that movie so young?" But it actually was such a yeah, it was terrifying to watch an alien burst out of someone's chest at 5 years old. But
Yeah.
it it just left me so inspired. I don't know, like at a very young age, I was just so inspired by darkness and evil and horror, and I just thought like. And to this day, it's still part of the way I think about. I feel like it helped develop an imagination part of me that it's not all darkness and evil, but it's like I like playing with these different themes. And I don't know why I'm talking about this. I don't know what you asked originally, but
I can't
I
remember what I asked either.
I've gone on a tangent as you per usual. This
No,
is how all the
it,
interviews I do go. I just
oh, absolutely. No, it was. I've remembered now. It was about risk taking. It was about
oh,
risk
okay.
taking.
Yeah,
Which it totally makes sense what you're saying there. We should explore darkness. It's a good thing to do. And sometimes I think that this. I'm just thinking aloud now that the darkness is almost um there's so much of what we see is about, is the good side. I mean, aside from some of the real sort of shit that's happening in the world, but the stuff that people want to project about themselves is all the good stuff. it's like all it's like I'm doing this and I'm doing this, isn't that great? And that yet there's another side which is not so great, which people are sometimes scared to show. So I think that, and when you said about those kind of opposing, emotions that your music makes you feel, which you're absolutely right. For me, that certainly comes across, and that's the exciting part, where you get something that's kind of like gives you a sort of positive emotion, and the next, just around the corner, is something that takes another turn, which is
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I didn't expect that.
yeah, yeah.
That's the exciting stuff in music for me.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm not sure like how many listeners find that exciting or like whether they find it exhausting, but I will say this. My brain is rapidly I just feel all kinds of stuff at all times. I'm just very, very ADD. I
Mm,
was never diagnosed, but I know that I have some of those qualities in my life. It's something that I struggle with. I have a very hard time sticking with things, without getting easily distracted or overwhelmed. And music has always been one of those things that I could just be extremely focused on. But with that focus, I'm able to infuse it with that ability to kind of feel all these things, but bringing it into a lens, a single lens or something. But yeah, I definitely for me, it's all play. I'm just playing. I'm having fun. I want to make
mm,
songs that I want to play. I want to make songs that playing live will be fun for me because I'm the one who has to play them. Um,
yeah.
so it's just all about like kind of just yeah. I try to write simple songs, and sometimes I do, but other times I just like to have fun and get lost in my music and see like where it'll take me. And I like to think of it as a movie. Each song is like a little short blast, of like
Mm,
imagery and yeah, I find myself it's all play for me. I'm just playing and turning that play into that playful experience into a little gift with a bow tie on top. I want to hand it to somebody like here I made
yeah.
this little thing. And of course it's not going to be for everyone. I do make very interesting unique music, I think, in the sense that it's like
Mm,
interesting as in like a little out there, but it's the fact that people have anything nice to say about it at all is really exciting to me. Over the years, I've been very humbled, and I have imposter syndrome that I'm dealing with about just like kind of accepting this, because I make my music in such a deep private place. I live in my mind and make this music in there, and it's just kind of crazy in there. And when I bring it out to the world and people actually like it, that is a crazy feeling. Just to think that people
mm,
actually can see you, they see you for what you are sometimes, and that's kind of an exciting thing because I never knew that anyone would ever get to see inside that little world that I created. I never
mm,
thought I spend so much time there that I forget that other people can visit too. And it is pretty wild. I am very, very thrilled and humbled at all the amazing feedback I've been getting on I'm just really proud and excited and lucky. Honestly, I'm very lucky because what I do is something that it took me a long time. It wasn't something I just did one day. It was like I've been developing this, and it's been a long time. And if you just keep doing something and you don't give up, you will grow at it. And I think that that's something that I try to tell people because great things, as they say, take time, and it's true. It really takes time and development, and that ability to just like really just sit with something. Like see what
mm.
happens, sit with it, see how it develops.
If it's not too personal a question, but how do you manage your imposter syndrome?
It's not personal at all. I I don't know. I don't know how I manage it. I have therapy. That's personal.
Mm,
Like
mm.
I'll walk you through a therapy session. No. Um, yeah, basically, I've just always been that way. I've always been
Mm,
very, very shy. I'm the firstborn child of my family, and I was overprotected the most of all my siblings. And I think I just was raised to believe that I was. I don't know. I don't really know. Obviously, my parents didn't consciously do that to me. It's like it's just the nature of being the firstborn child, I guess. I'm not sure. I've always been a bit neurotic and a bit yeah, I don't know. ever since as a child, I felt this way, of just,
Mm,
wanting to be kind of accepted, but not believing that I was worthy of that. And I still, I still go through that, obviously. But my music has been the ultimate therapy. To be honest with you, I think that the imposter syndrome, the number one cure for it is to just keep writing songs. Because every time I write a song, that's my happy place. I'm in this little universe that I've created for myself. I'm in this like happy place. I'm a child for once again, and I'm like, listen, I'm in my mind just playing. I'm just trying new things and building, all while thinking people are going to get to listen to this when it's done. And that
yeah.
keeps me going. That keeps me like reinventing myself or whatever. And so the imposter syndrome will always exist to some degree. But I think the staying focused and writing and playing and all of that, it really helps the voices
Mm.
lower in volume.
Yeah, I mean, I've had this as well. This is why I was interested in it. I mean, I've had this, and I mean, I'm an only child, and I always felt when I was not just when I was younger, sort of through my life. While my parents died a couple of years ago, but I always sort of felt that, the spotlight was on. It was on me. My mum wasn't able to. My parents weren't able to sort of have me till a little bit later in life, and as a result, there was attention. Their attention was on me a lot, and so I often felt that I had to prove myself in some way. But yeah, what you said, that I didn't feel that I was good enough to be able to fill those particular sort of spaces, and I still have it. I've learned to adapt and to live with it, and but that I still have it, and I have it each time I put a podcast episode out, each time I do some design work and put a piece of writing out, I still have it, and then when it goes out and it's totally fine, I'm thinking, there we go again.
Yeah,
Let's just that's that parked for the moment. Let's wait till the next time that it sort of comes around. But you're right. I think that for me the equivalent is doing that, right, do these sort of podcasts, and every time it goes out, it's okay, well, maybe gets a little bit easier, or you can think back to the previous time. Did anything happen? No, it was kind of okay.
yeah, no, totally. I mean, I relate to that heavily. Yeah, I think every little bit of effort to push yourself and take those risks. And it's a risk to
Mm,
put your music out or
yeah.
to creatively put yourself out, like you're saying. And it's a risk in that. And I think that when you get good at just ignoring the imposter inside of you, ignoring that, you build a tough skin. You just build a tough skin. There's nothing more. I don't know. For me, like I'm so thankful for the I have built a bit of resilience through all this. I mean, I'm 34. I've been doing this for a very long time, and
Mm,
you just after a while you build some kind of resilience. It never goes away. The self doubt and the imposter syndrome and the voice that says people are just I always tell in my mind I'm always like people are just being nice. That's it. That's but at some point you have to realize that that's not the case. Yeah, of course, I'm sure some people maybe are like, oh, the song's okay, but I'll just be nice, whatever. That's fine. Of course, that's part of this. That's part of just being an artist. But I do think that I have to give myself a little bit more credit because I have sat in this little universe creating for so long that you lose track of time and the fabric of space time. You just lose track of it. You're in this place, and while you're in that place you're building something, and when you build it and people finally hear it, they're not hearing it in the context of you being like lost in your mind. They're hearing it as this fresh finished thing that's like come from nowhere. And
mm,
so I think that the imposter syndrome has to be looked at with perspective. When you're locked away in your brain making this music and you're in your room and you're while everyone else is having a life and you're just grinding making songs because you have to. There's some reason the universe is making you make these songs. You get lost in them, and sometimes you get a little too lost. You forget that you're doing something great. You forget that you're channeling great spirit, you know. And sometimes, yeah, sometimes I have to remind myself that the people are hearing this stuff, you know, in a completely different context. And yeah, I don't know. It's just there's a lot of
Mm,
factors that go into it. But yeah, by getting lost in your world of creation, sometimes you lose. It's like a postpartum depression or something. It's like you've developed this living thing, and then when it's done, it's like you lose sight of all the product, the you know, I don't know, you just lose sight of all the things that you did to make this thing, and then it's, yeah, I don't
mm.
know, obviously, yeah.
If you your writing, um, you said, you know, sort of comes from a very sort of personal place, you know, where you're kind of sort of delving and you've now got so it's very very individualistic. But now you've got a band now. Is the band just for live or for
Well,
recording?
no, the band
It's
is a new.
recording as well.
It's going to be for. We haven't recorded together yet because we're kind of a new band in the last couple years. Of the album was already finished when I started playing with these people, so it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I play with someone named Micah on bass and JoJo on drums, and we're like a whole new lineup, and we're gonna record together, and we're already kind of planning that actually. And yeah, we play together live, and we tour together. We're very close. We're
Mm,
family, I would say. We hang out very often, and we all live in New York City. And
mm.
yeah, it's a beautiful thing to have that. Yeah.
And this is I guess this is a change for you. I mean, change for you all, but this is a change for you, you know, in having, you know, two other, you know, kind of people that are close to you but playing with you now. I mean, how does that sort of dynamic feel to you now? Oh, obviously it feels right, but
Yeah. Well, I've played with people over the years pretty regularly, and you know, I've played tons of shows in 2018 and 2019, and you know, I've played with various people, uh, but I've always like kind of I've had like more of like a rotating cast, you know.
mm,
I finally like said, okay, like things are getting a little more serious with this band, and I need to like really lock in like a real band. And my dream has always been to have a real band.
mm,
To like this project has always been more of like a bedroom style recording project, you know, like having different people play on different songs, and but I've always wanted like a real rock band. You know, I think like my dream is to make like a rock band and have like really high energy songs, and you know, I'm the songwriter, but I like having the other bandmates give their 2 cents on everything. You know, like maybe I write the song, but it gets completely, you know, disassembled at the rehearsal, and we take it apart, and we just,
mm,
and that isn't really me. That's the band. You know, that's their expertise is like, you know, how to make the drums and bass lock in really well, or like how to bring the dynamics here or there, whatever. It's like I love that I can bring my role to the table and then have other people with their role refine. I keep using the word refine, but that's such a great word for building something. It's like, you know, you have many layers of you know, I write the song, I make the demo, we treat it at the band practice, we record the song in the studio. It's like there's all
mm,
these levels of development, and I think that's huge for the music. You know, when you're making music, it's like there's so many moving parts to making a song and recording it. It's not just coming up with an idea and making it. It's like, for me at least, I want there to be all these layers because it creates personality, it creates life experience. It's just, yeah. So yeah, having this band is very promising to me because now we're gonna really build, you know, every album I'd like to kind of do something different. And for the next album, I want it to be more of like a family effort, more of a less of a bedroom recording vibe and more of a live rock, high
mm.
energy vibe. We'll see. We'll see how it pans out. But I'm really excited because every time I have a vision, um, great things happen. I don't know. It's like just getting the vision is the hard part for me. Everything else is like everything else just kind of, you know, it's still hard work, but yeah, I've been having this vision for a few years now, and the fact that it's starting to happen is like so exciting to me. You know, it takes time, but yeah, the vision of mine is just to have like a real
Mm.
band, make high energy music and have a blast playing these songs and make a great record. Like that's all I really want. And I think that it's coming true slowly, and that's thank the universe, you know?
I think yeah, I love that. I think you know, having that vision and bringing in people in, because then the possibilities start to become more apparent. And
Totally.
and sometimes, I mean, that's the kind of like the excitement, because you don't know which way it will go.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, I'm not sure. Let's, because there, like you say, there are so many moving parts when you bring in, the two people with their minds, their outlooks, their influences, then the whole shape could change. And I think, you having that open-mindedness to accommodate that and work with that is amazing.
Totally. Yeah. It's hard work, playing with people so closely. It's like, it's like siblings or something. You're just like close
Mm,
quarters, and it's hard work. There's it's like being in a relationship of any kind. It takes work on all parties.
yeah.
And so I'm learning about that. I'm learning about, you know, yeah, just trying to, yeah, it's hard work. It's hard work having a real band,
Yeah.
that's for
No,
sure.
absolutely. I can totally empathize with that. And actually, that thing of one thing that I'm really interested in, and I'm a really strong believer in, is emotional intelligence. And the fact that it's not taught to kids from such an early age is still mind-boggling for me. But the ability to have, for example, your own self-awareness, to empathize, with what the other person or the other people are perhaps seeing and feeling. I just think it's really important. I'm not sure that there are times when there's tension that produces creativity or can produce sort of good outcomes, but also on the other side, on the flip side, you know being able to understand what is driving those other people, I think it's really important. You're right. It does completely take work, whatever relationships you have.
No, totally. Very important to have good communication, and I think having roles in a band,
Mm,
having like actual distinct defined roles, like this is what I'm good at, this is what I bring to the table. A lot of bands break up in the world, and I think that the reason why people have a hard time working together, and I don't know everything. Obviously, I've been in many bands, and but I'll just say from my experience, I think like having the defined roles and good communication skills and kindness, all these things
mm,
go well together when trying to keep something moving and working. And yeah, I think I'm learning about a lot of things myself, but yeah, I'm like really invested in creating a really healthy environment. And you know touring is very hard, and it
mm.
definitely it takes a huge toll on anybody who's on the road, so it's just like it's really important to just, as much as it is to care and nurture this music, it's equally, if not more important, to nurture the mental health and communication and the interpersonal, connectedness of everyone. I think it's
Absolutely.
really, really, that's what's going to make it fun to make music. And so, yeah, it's just that I'm learning that just being being an artist is so much more than just making good art or making art at all. It's
Mm.
like you really have to understand a lot about, there's a lot of moving parts, and I think that the more you have a grasp on those moving parts, or how they work at least, the better the music will flow. Um, but there's no
Yeah.
rules. There's dysfunction, and people make great music. So yeah, I don't know. I just feel
Yeah.
like for me and my longevity and being able to play music into my older age, I need to be able to have those things in place. And yeah, I just my dream is to continue doing what I'm doing and just like continue building and creating more music, and doing it with the right people is huge, and I'm just excited to explore that part of my life.
Nick, that feels like a very positive place to stop.
Hell yeah.
That was fantastic. Thanks so much for taking the time and sharing so much with me. It's been really
Thank you.
great.
Thank you very much. That was very enjoyable. Thank you. Very thoughtful questions. Thank you.
Pleasure. Pleasure. Well, listen, all the best, and really great to see you.
Thank you. You too. Great to meet you. Thanks again. This was a lot of fun.